Okay, let's talk about it. You're in your 30s. You've been at this music thing for a while, and lately, thoughts have been creeping in. Like, did I miss my shot? Is it too late for any of this to actually happen for me? And so here you are watching this video, sitting in regret, wondering if you should keep going, wondering how someone in your position could actually find success. But what if that story, that exact one you've been avoiding and trying to outrun, isn't holding you back, but is actually the secret ingredient to the success that you've been looking for this whole time? In this video, I'm going to reprogram your brain to no longer see your age as a weakness, but instead a strength. And not just any strength, but the key to growing a community for your music. However, before we dive in, if this video is already hitting a little too close to home, then I invite you to click the link in the description titled Artist Consultation so that you and I can meet, we can chat about everything that you've been through and discuss how to transform it into a powerful story that fuels a sustainable content strategy. And I mean it when I say I get it. Right before I turned 30, I was almost about to quit music entirely. I was burnt out, I was doubting everything, and I was stuck in that same shame spiral, wondering if I had simply missed my moment. But instead of quitting, I went all in and reinvented myself. I started a brand new project, one built around my story, my values, and my actual lived experience. And in just over 3 years, that project has grown to nearly 3 million streams on Spotify, 2 million of those streams in the last 12 months alone. Our audience isn't just growing, but we're connecting. And the best part, it all feels so aligned. That shift didn't happen from chasing trends. It happened when I finally stopped running from my story and started using it as the core of everything that I put into the world as an artist. So let's dive in. Before we get into any big transformative mindset in this video, and I promise you there will be many, so get ready, I want to take a second to really acknowledge you and maybe offer a deeper frame for what you're feeling right now, just to help put some language to it so we can actually move through it. What most artists describe at this phase is regret. But what I think you might actually be experiencing underneath that is actually grief. There's this depressive longing for what hasn't been, paired with this anxiety about the unknown future, because the version of success you thought you would build did not unfold in the way you imagined. And now you're not quite sure what you're even building toward anymore. You're grieving the version of yourself that never fully got to exist, the version of your career that never materialized, the future that never arrived, at least not in the timeline you were counting on. And quite frankly, that timeline has passed. So now, as an adult with adult responsibilities, you're stuck in this strange limbo, quietly mourning what wasn't while still holding on tightly, white knuckling the dream you thought you were supposed to have. It's a form of protection. You don't want to let go because letting go feels like losing that version of your life forever. And that feels heartbreaking. But here's what I have to say about that. You do not have to let go of that dream. You simply have to let go of the rigid, outdated version of it. The version your younger self built, but your adult self is not being supported by anymore. Because the only way to move forward is to meet yourself where you are at right now and start reimagining what success can actually look like for who you've become. And the rest of this video, that's what it's here to help you do. But we had to start here and get emotional because the only way to really move through it is to name it. And now that we have, let's start a mindset shifting, shall we? Now that that's out of the way, I want to shift into the secret ingredient to your success that you've probably been avoiding this entire time. Your story. What have you been through? What have you overcome? Because that's your story. Think of it like your character arc. If your life was a TV series or a novel or a film, this would be the moment that defines you as the protagonist. This would be the part of the story that tells us who that character really is, the destiny they're meant for, and subsequently what we remember them by. And all of that is usually born from friction, from tension, from something internally and externally shifting. And then through that tension, that transformation begins to unfold. That's what your audience wants to connect with. That's what your future fans and current fans are craving. They don't want a perfect, polished highlight reel. They want to know what you've lived through, what you've learned, and who you've become because of it. They want you to be a little vulnerable, because when your content and your music are grounded in that level of truth, when they're shaped by everything that you have moved through, it changes how people receive you. They don't just scroll past, they stop, they pay attention, they connect, because you're no longer creating from a desperate energy or a place of trying to prove something that feels misaligned. You're creating from a place of clarity and true alignment, from embodiment, from your truth. And people, they feel that. They recognize the resonance. They trust what you're about, and they stick around because it makes you feel more human. And all of that, it literally helps you grow so much faster. And we're about to discuss why, but before we do, I just want to check in. How are you feeling? Is this all resonating? Is it maybe resonating a little too much? Do you feel called out? If you're sitting there thinking, yeah, this is literally me, then again, I invite you to click the link in the description titled Artist Consultation. That way, you and I can meet and talk about everything that you've been through, everything you're working toward, and start really, truly mapping out a way that we can craft the most resonant story possible for your strategy to get there. Okay, at this point, we've already talked about why being the age you are actually puts you in an incredible position to grow your audience, but now I want to zoom in and get even more specific and talk about how your story adds value to your fans through your music and soon your content. Think of value like a transaction between you and your ideal fan, or anyone listening to your music or engaging with your content. There has to be something they receive from that experience, something they walk away with, something they remember you by. And most often that thing is going to be emotional. It's usually deeper, a bit psychological. It taps into something that makes them remember. Now earlier, remember we were talking about your story of transformation, that story that you've lived through that only someone who's been through life at your age can actually understand. But here's what I want you to do with that. I want you to think about that story as something that actually holds tangible value. So ask yourself, what changed in you? What emotional state were you in before, and where did you land after in that transformative story? And then reverse engineer it, flip it around, because when someone connects with your story or your music that comes from that story or your content, what they're resonating with is that transformation. Your true fans recognize that journey, and most of the time it's because they're still on it. Maybe in that before state, they're emotionally or situationally where you were, and what they're longing for is the emotions, the perspective that you've tapped in through living through that. And you might be wondering, well, what the heck does this have to do with my music? It has to do everything with your music, because your music comes from your subconscious world, and your subconscious world is built by your lived experience. It's in your music, which means your music is a reflection of that transformation. Whether you're fully through that transformation or you're still inside of it, your music becomes a kind of canvas, a filter for that story. The frequencies, the emotions, the essence, it's all embedded in your songs, whether you're doing it intentionally or not. So when someone hears your music and feels deeply connected to it, it's not random. It's because something in it feels familiar. It mirrors something inside them. It connects a frequency they recognize because they see their own story inside of yours, both subconsciously through the music or literally through the lyrics, or even your content once you begin sharing your story and framing your songs through that story in your content. That is the value you offer. That is the transaction. And if you can understand that, if you get clear on the story that informs your music and the value embedded in that story, then you can integrate that value into your entire content strategy. And when people actually go to listen to your music, they're connecting with the reasons why they followed you. You can channel it into the way that you talk, the way that you tell stories, the way you write hooks, the way you frame your content, all of it. So now you're not just throwing content into a void hoping something lands. You're creating with intention, with resonance, and that's when the right people start showing up. Because they're no longer simply hearing a song, they're feeling something. They're seeing themselves. They're seeing a community they belong to, and they're sticking around because of it. And look, when you create from this place, when you're rooted in your story and not ashamed of it, when you meet yourself honestly, authentically, and embrace your human experience and story without fear or shame, you start to connect with people on a much deeper level. You cut through the noise, you stand out, and not because you're louder, but because you're clear. The signal you're emitting is being picked up by the other humans who recognize it and resonate with it. With that, you build reputation, you build resonance, and all of that, that's what fuels real growth. Not just fulfillment-wise, but literally in the numbers, in the algorithm, in the way people engage and stick around. When you build those deep connections, your content starts to scale and moves further and reaches more people, and it does it faster because it's rooted in something they're connecting with. Think about it. If someone connects with a video on social media, they watch longer, they share it, they leave a comment, they save it to watch later. All of these actions are exactly what TikTok and other social media platforms look for when deciding to push out your content to more people. And because algorithms are smart, they will not only send it to more people, but they'll send it to more people like the ones who are engaging with your video at the highest level, which means you will reach more people who resonate with your story and your perspective when you share it. In other words, owning your story, no matter how shameful you might feel that life hasn't happened the way that you originally thought it would, sharing the story is literally your secret to growth. And that level of connection especially matters for you musicians. The problem we face when we're creating content is getting people off of the platform and onto our streaming platforms. A lot of the time, if people follow us on social media or they simply like and engage with our content, they might not engage beyond that. But we're posting content as a mechanism to get people to stream our music ultimately. So if we're not creating an ecosystem in our content that allows them to stream our music or encourages them to stream our music, then we're defeating the purpose. And your story, that deep connection you develop through that story, it encourages people to click off the platform, to go stream your music and to do other things that are really important. Maybe watch your music video, maybe buy merchandise, maybe buy tickets to your show, maybe to join an off-platform community like a Patreon community or a Discord server or an email list, which is really important in the age of social media algorithms being very, very, very unpredictable and social media platforms maybe possibly not being here tomorrow. All of that is really important, but ultimately, it's the definition of us creating fans, of people engaging with us, connecting with us on such a high level that they're taking all of these additional efforts beyond simply the platform they find us on. Think about it. If you think back to your favorite artist of all time, of course, you're gonna say, I like them because their music's good. But they're your favorite artist for another reason. There's something there about them that connects with you, that you resonate with. Maybe it's their perspective, maybe it's what they represent, maybe it's what they stand for, maybe it's their story, maybe they've lived through a similar experience in life that you can relate to. All in all, if you're watching this, if you have a favorite artist, I bet there is a deeper reason. And that's what we're looking to create on social media. Of course, we're going to connect with passerbys, people who are passively there on the outskirts in the peripheral, but we actually really want to connect with our ideal fan. That is who our strategy should be created to reach, because those are the people who go the extra mile. Those are the ones who click off of the platforms. Those are the ones who are standing front line center at our show in the front, and we recognize them from venue to venue, state to state if you're touring. But the point is, those people, they're there because they connect with something. They feel connected to you. You stood out amongst the sea of other artists because you resonated with them on such a deep level. That's what happens when you share your story. That's what happens when you're honest. That's what happens when you're true to what you've been through. So all this said, stop shying away from your story. I know it might feel icky to say I'm this age and my life hasn't happened and there was all this bubbling shame inside of you because of it, and it feels really uncomfortable to share it, but I'm telling you, it's going to transform your content strategy. Now, if you've been watching this video and you're thinking, wow, this is literally me, then I invite you to click the link below titled Artist Consultation and book a call. My coaching program was built to provide high-level personalized support for artists exactly in your position. If you're ready to stop spinning in the same cycle, spinning those wheels, and instead learn how to own your story, transform it into a grounded strategy, and actually scale that strategy across time, then I'd love to work together. I'd love to chat, so click the link. Thanks so much for watching this video. If it resonated with you, make sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, drop a comment below. Any questions, any breakthroughs, I'd love to hear it. And of course, turn on those bell notifications. Just remember, your story matters. It's not too late. You're not too late. You are exactly where you are meant to be to build something beautiful and meaningful. That next chapter, it starts right now. So go get them. Start talking about yourself. All right, see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.